Livestream. He's Patrick Watson. I'm Nick Dagan Best. How you doing, Patrick?
I'm doing okay. I guess whenever I see this appear on YouTube, I'll put it on some social media channels. But yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing okay. I feel a lot better than I had in the past few weeks. There's been a lot of pressure relieved, and yeah, I'm in a better mental space. I think a little bit. How about
Aren't
you?
we all? Yeah, I think we can all attest to that. Nechepso's running along beautifully. We announced a week ago that we had our new optimized version out, our proper zero point 0.1 version of Nechepso software out. There were a few bugs in the first couple of days, nothing we couldn't overcome. But now it's running pretty nicely, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, and the more seamless it gets, the more intriguing it all becomes. So yeah, I've been playing with it a bunch. I figured we would just sort of keep the conversation going, and yeah, because there's no end to what we can demonstrate in terms of what Nechepso can do. So like, why not keep this conversation going?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I use the software pretty consistently now. I'm being able to kind of rely on it more and more. I use it for clients. I use it just for checking the chart at the moment. It's really becoming part of my workflow or praxis, I guess. uh,
Interesting
um,
choice of words.
yeah. Yeah. In joke that will make sense maybe at some other point. Probably soon. But yeah, it's yeah, it's really I'm surprised. I mean, I guess it's kind of funny. Mercury did just station retrograde, and so we did have like a couple of issues right at the start there. But otherwise, I'm very very impressed. I'm kind of falling in love with the software all over again because there are so many things that now that they actually work, kind of like the way that we sort of originally imagined they would. It's just so kind of reappreciating how kind of novel the whole concept is, and how cool some of these features are to actually use. Like using the timeline is just like a joy to me. um it's really something I've just dreamt of, and it's just so cool to actually be able to play with that.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, I mean, I haven't actually been playing with the timeline much lately, although I'm really looking forward to doing it. But I'm just so entranced with your heliacal phenomena tool, that yeah, I've been just sort of twiddling with that for a lot of the past week, and really learning a lot. It's pretty amazing to lay it out that way, and I mean, it's so unprecedented, and I think so necessary to
Yeah.
have that information available to us. Any of the ancients, no matter what the culture would have been, they would have been paying attention to just that. So, like, at last, astrology has a computer tool that can replicate what those sort of observations make. Shall
Right.
I share the screen, and shall we
Yeah.
shall we play around? Do you okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Parenthetical information says, hello gentlemen. Hello
Uh,
to you.
Hello to
Parenthetical
you.
information.
Yeah. Parenthetical information. Mr. and Mrs. Information must have been very proud of their child, parenthetical for doing so well in life. All right. So yeah, well, Chris and I did we had a conversation yesterday about Iran. Of course, something's come up lately. So I have I've been looking at a lot of Iran related charts, but a lot of other things as well. Some nativities that I'm starting to put in here, just a few so far. But yeah, playing, like I said, I've only been playing with the timeline just a little bit, but I'm so entranced with the heliacal phenomena tool here. And I know we showed it off last time, but we barely scratched the surface, and there is a lot of other stuff to look at. maybe as people request, hey, can we see this, can we see that, we
Mhm.
can adapt more. um, but yeah, just the, being able to look at everyone's all the planets and what the most recent heliacal or what are the closest heliacal risings and settings
Right.
relative to all the planets. Looking at, in Hellenistic astrology, the concept of fossus, of a planet declaring itself, making a statement. There are two conditions for this. One is if someone is born within 7 days before or after a planetary station, then that planet
Mhm.
is considered to be making a phosis. And then the other was whether it was within 7 days of making a heliacal rising or setting in that local location within 7 days. And that's the thing. It was really hard to gauge that until now, and then it becomes very easy to find who's got a planet making a phosis or not.
What do you think of the third potential condition for phosis, which would be when it's within 7 days of an ingress? Because obviously that would maybe happen too frequently for the moon, and it would happen a lot for Mercury. But what do you think of the idea of kind of a sort of zodiacal type of phosis, where a planet
Mm.
announces itself as it moves into a sign? Because that potentially provides another way of kind of determining like how active a given planet is if it's like stationing close to a sign boundary and coming out of the beams. It's like
Right,
sort of
right.
multiple levels of phases. And actually I was thinking
Well,
about adding something to actually notify you if the planet is within 7 days of
yeah,
the
yeah.
thing. I was sort of thinking that would be a good thing. In fact, we already have a couple things in the program that do tell you if a planet is within 7 days of a station. And I think that's on the sect tab.
Right.
It can show like if it happens to apply, then it will say like this planet is in phasis.
Yeah,
Um,
right here, you can
yeah.
see that yeah, because Muhammad Ali was born with Venus having just stationed retrograde.
Mhm.
He's got his Venus is in phasis there, retrograde,
Right. So I
and it's
think
Saturn. Yeah, it's Saturn.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we already have this kind of in the program, but yeah, I'd love to actually have something that kind of almost like alerts you, like, yeah,
Right.
hold on, this is a
Yeah.
planet that's doing something. Um,
Yeah, and
yeah.
to answer your question, I mean, my thoughts on that. The moon can't make a phosis, so it doesn't matter that it's changing sign all the time. I mean, it's got its phases. That sort of, I mean, the phosis for the moon are eclipses. Same for the sun,
Right.
or the equivalent thereof, so to speak. But with regard to planets making a phosis when they're changing sign within 7 days, I mean, to some degree, that's like it's almost like the critical degree thing, except
Mm,
you're sort of expanding it to a week. I don't know if I would take like a whole week before Mercury changes sign,
mm,
um
right.
but something, I mean, there is, that there is something to when planets are changing sign, when they're at the very last degree or the very first degree of the sign, that they're really, so it's not unlike phosis, that they're expressing like a very sort of extreme version of what it means to be that planet in that sign.
Mhm.
That would be, my interpretation of
Yeah,
that critical degree
I
thing.
see.
So that is kind of like phasis type language, so to speak. I
Right.
don't. I'm not trying to mush together, ancient and modern concepts
Mhm.
as such, but that one doesn't seem like such a high wire act to get between the 2 points.
Right, right. I do find that when a planet enters a new sign, that there is something that it almost kind of announces about itself. It's like you almost kind of get even maybe even kind of an omen, of like what the overall experience will be of that transit in the sign. And sometimes it can be really weirdly kind of literal. But you also kind of get the impression of a planet almost coming, having its parting shot as it's leaving the previous sign as well. Um,
Right.
like there's a few examples I could draw for that. I remember that it was like right before Jupiter entered Pisces in 2022. And have you seen the movie Don't Look Up?
Oh yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
movie with Meryl
Adam
Streep and
McKay,
yeah,
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 and
yeah, yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio. So this movie came out like right as Jupiter was like just about to leave Aquarius and just before it entered Pisces, and I just thought it was such a I felt like the movie. Well, one, I really enjoyed it. It
Mhm.
was it's very pretty grim, but it's also really funny. Obviously, making a really important sort of message. But I felt like it was such an interesting parting shot from Jupiter and Aquarius because it felt like this sort of like impassioned plea for people to like not be idiots, um, and I
Right.
know that seemed to kind of match the vibe of like Jupiter and Aquarius. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
sometimes you
and
kind
it
of see
was
things
and
like
it
that.
and it really was, like, for maybe 2 weeks, it really was this thing that just everyone was talking about all the time.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it as well, but I remember, like, not everyone did. A lot of people were all salty about it and, I thought it was good. I liked it.
Yeah.
Um, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, yeah, so anyway, okay, yeah, so we were talking about planets ingressing into signs and sort of seeing, sort of little signs of usually, like, for example, when a planet, like, will initially enter a sign and then it retrogrades and then it sort of comes back, it tends to be something that arises during the first initial ingress that kind
Right,
of isn't totally, it's like a theme is presented without really following up on it, and then it sort of comes back when the planet comes back into the sign. I'm sure you've noticed that a few times, especially with tracking like Uranus, um, going into Gemini and then retrograding back into Taurus and then re-entering Gemini. Um, uh, there's, I mean, like, it occurs to me that like it was around the time of Saturn, I believe, entering Aries. Like, I think it was like the No Kings protest, right? Which is such an
right.
obvious like Saturn in Aries type of manifestation. So I think it's kind of interesting that like that energy sort of died down a bit as Saturn went back into Pisces, but then it sort of re-enters, and there's much more sort of aggrieved, and the feeling is sort of more bitter, especially even from some of that guy's former supporters, etc., in the
Right.
wake of all of the disclosures. So yeah, I think there's some interesting things about a planet when it sort of re-enters the sign, and like I said, it's sort of almost like omenistic. Like
Mhm.
there's like small things that happen that seem kind of stupid. Like I'll tell you mine, and it's so dumb, but when Uranus, on the very day that Uranus ingressed into Gemini, I was kind of aware. I was aware of it, and I was sort of almost sort of looking out for like what kind of weird thing could happen that might tell me a little bit of what this is about. And nothing really truly significant really happened at that time. But one thing that did stand out is I buy these bath bombs. I have like this like
Mm.
huge box of bath bombs that I give to my wife Beth. She likes this particular brand of bath bomb. They smell incredible, and she had like a really bright blue one and like a really bright light blue one, and she's like, "Look at this!" And I went into the bathroom to see why she was talking about this bright blue bath bomb that looks a bit like Uranus, by the way, and it was spinning. It was like usually when you put a bath bomb in the bath, it will just sort of foam and disintegrate, and this bath bomb was spinning so quickly that it was like like traveling around the bathtub, and it was like spinning like a wheel, and I'm like, that's Uranus, like that's that's the way Uranus orbits. It like
Right.
rolls around the zodiac. It doesn't just spin. It like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
rolls
Well,
like a wheel. So I was just like, this is a very strange omen. I'm like seeing the way Uranus behaves through this like bath bomb that looks like Uranus. Anyway, so really stupid story, but to me, it felt significant that that happened, on the very day of this ingress, and I think that there are kind of these little events that seem like insignificant on their face, but in context of the overall sort of cosmic event, makes me wonder, well, what the hell is this trying to say? Is this just a hello, or is there some other deep meaning here? Anyway, we can move on. um, so it looks like we're shuffling through some different display options
Yeah,
here on the
some
Nechepso.
different display options, just playing around while you narrate about spinning bath bombs.
Yeah.
It's quite the soundtrack.
Yeah.
These are the lunar mansions. Again, you can go through these lunar mansions and get all these definitions. Of course, as we showed last time, you can click on planets and get all this, like just pages and, well, these little mini pages of
Oh,
information, all kinds of stuff. Yes, what were you
oh
gonna
yeah. Oh no, no. Go back to the latitude section
the grid
of the pop-ups. Like click on a pop-up. Nope.
of this? No?
Nope. No, no, no. Like just click on a planet in a chart to get the
Oh,
pop-up.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the info pop-up. Like one of the first ones. So do you see how oh wait, maybe it's on speed? Maybe it's on the speed tab. I think it must be on the speed one. Okay, let's go
Speed.
down. Oh, maybe I can't see it on your screen, but do
What are we
you?
looking
Oh, basically, do you see like any kind of symbol next to the S on declination direction and latitude direction? Is
No,
that like it
no,
just
I
says S?
just says S.
Huh, that's strange. One sec, let me check on my copy because there should be like an arrow
Oh,
showing you like the direction
I
that it's
I
actually moving in.
I wonder if it's not the color scheme. But
Uh,
it should be in the same color font as the S, right? The arrow that you're describing?
yeah, it should be. Yeah. So, the way that we had it working before, it must just be like a font issue or something, but or a coloring issue. But uh the idea was instead of just showing like positionally where a planet is relative to the ecliptic or the equator, that it would also be accompanied by an arrow that shows you not only like where it is positionally, but is it on a trajectory going north or is it on a trajectory going south? Because I think it's important to know if a planet is south and continuing to move south, or if a planet is, south but moving north. Because that would give you a slightly different interpretation, maybe of like what the sort of amplitude of that planet is.
Mm.
You'd also want to know when it's crossing the zero mark. When it's actually crossing the equator or crossing the the ecliptic, as well as when it's reaching its max points of where it's at its max southern latitude or its max northern declination, or when it's out of bounds. So yeah, that's supposed to be in there, but I think yeah, it must just be a coloring issue. But
Yeah.
I was really excited about that because it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like you need a little more information. You don't just want to know, where it is vertically or what have you. You need to know like the trajectory it's on.
Yeah, I agree, I agree. Yeah, we'll sort that out so it's more visible for sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's good to have. So we got a lunar eclipse coming up, in 2 days, and it's the lunar eclipse that is also a recurrence transit for the guy in charge of your country currently.
Right.
Um,
That would happen
so
couple times a year at least.
well,
No,
no,
this one is
only once a year. Like a north node with the sun, south node with the moon is only once a year, or sometimes twice a year, I suppose.
yeah,
True. Yeah, yeah.
not
I guess
common, but it can.
not common. You can get to in a year. I do stand somewhat corrected, but generally, on average, once a
Mhm.
year.
Um, that's true. I do think certain ones would be more important, but I think this one probably would fall under the umbrella of being more important because if we consider that that guy has his nodes in Gemini and Sagittarius, and we can see the nodes are currently still moving their way through Pisces and Virgo, we know that he's essentially at the eclipses which are square to his natal ones. And so these particular eclipses are at those kind of at the points of the zodiac where the moon and the sun would be reaching their kind of maximum northern or southern declinations at those quarter points of the year between the eclipses. So there is a kind of greater sense, I think, of those eclipses being maybe more important than, say, just like the ones in Libra and Aries. You know, it would be the ones which are angular to his natal luminaries and their intersecting points. It's also worth noting too that even though the ascendant is at the very end of Leo, and Leo is the first sign, Leo is the rising house, that still by degree, as planets are moving upward through Virgo, or indeed as the eclipses are preceding backward through Virgo, that these eclipses are moving back toward his ascendant, that they're moving towards the rising sign. So they wouldn't even have to be in the sign of the ascendant in order to still be, by degree, in close proximity to the ascendant. So I think that's another way of looking at the kind of significance of eclipses in Virgo for their continued advancement towards the degree of the ascendant. It's sort of, these are more angular types of eclipses in a sense, you know,
Right.
than say, you know, just other random ones. The last time that there were eclipses in Sagittarius and Gemini was in 2020 to 2021, right? So that was the last sort of major critical juncture, you know, for eclipses that were kind of aligned with his own. And then, of course, as we got to, I think the first lunar eclipse in Virgo or Pisces was September of 2024, which was just prior to the election. And that's actually quite similar to the fact that in 2016 you had eclipses occurring in Virgo and Pisces, and that was just prior to his election. And that's one thing actually really kind of overlooked, because I admit that in kind of in looking at whole sign houses and knowing that he has a fixed sign rising, I think I was really focusing on this pattern of eclipses occurring in the first house for presidential candidates, and you know, which ones kind of get to like the final stages seems to be determined by like who has the more angular eclipses. And I kind of discounted Trump in 2016 for a bunch of reasons, but also because those eclipses weren't really, you know, in his first house, but they actually, while they weren't in his first house, like just by degree, they were advancing close to the ascendant. And so I kind of missed that. And, you know, and I suppose for someone looking at it from sort of a quadrant-based perspective, they would say like, oh, well, this discounts whole sign houses. I'm like, well, you don't have to discount them. You don't have to discount either frame of reference. You know, I think it's useful to look at the division of the sky in you know, according to the ecliptic and according to the terrestrial frame. So, you know,
well,
it's useful.
you know, that's the thing is the, you know, in those days, I mean, that's a good point. In those days, though, the North Node was the one heading towards his ascendant. Right now, it's the South Node. So whereas at that time, he was like, you know, absolutely, you know, had his finger on the pulse, absolutely was 5 steps ahead of everyone, et cetera, et cetera. Now the South Node is on his ascendant, and you know, no matter what he does, he's really not in control of how things play out. It's the flip side to having the North Node on the ascendant. When the South Node is on the ascendant, you're really more like a plastic bag in the wind, and the best you can do is usually just sort of like, you know, maneuver your way through it as opposed to direct where it's going.
A plastic bag in the wind, learning to start again. Is that so is that where you're going with this? No, any
just
Katy Perry fans out there? All right.
No, just the I was thinking more
oh, you were thinking more American Beauty.
American Beauty, yeah, you know, but there's so much beauty in the world.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking actually of a plastic bag in the wind, Watson, is what I was thinking of.
Oh yeah, the common sight outside your window. Yeah.
Well, you know, yeah, depends on where you live. But the point being that, you know, you're not in charge of where things are going. Like you know, at best you can maneuver your way through it, but it's not a time when you're in control of
right. No,
you're
I
not
understand
steering
the
the helm.
analogy.
Yeah,
Can
you're not steering the helm.
Can you tell me what you've said before? You've told me before about how you differentiate like North Node versus South Node transits to the angles. You said something like one is about like, I forget the formulation you used. You had like a kind of pithy way of differentiating between those nodes. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, not necessarily. I
you said something like
How did I put it?
You said something like it isn't these exact words, but you said something like North Node's about like letting go, and
Oh
South
yeah,
Node's
yeah.
about minimizing. What how do you put this?
The North Node is objective driven. The North Node is about pursuing an objective, so almost single mindedly. And when the North Node is crossing the ascendant, it really is like the individual has both hands on the steering wheel of the ship of their lives. You know, the ascendant being the helm, the thing that decides what direction you're going in.
Hmm.
When the South Node's crossing the ascendant, it's not about, you know, your objectives. It's not about where you're trying to steer your life. It's about how you maneuver in terms of you know what's coming your way, how you respond or react to you know to what happens to you or what's happening around you.
Hmm.
The South Node is more sort of magnetic and
Hmm.
uh, um, is less about having agency and more about responding or reacting. I have a lot of, I've had quite a few clients, South Node rising around the midheaven, and they're, you know, they're involved in very South Node like fields, like, you know, a therapist whose job is to sit there and say nothing and listen, recording engineer, a documentary filmmaker who had you know, the sun conjunct the South Node close in the midheaven, um, a court reporter. These are all jobs where, you know, you're in the room but you're not in the room. You know what I mean? Like it's very
Hmm.
white gloves. Like there's a detachment. And in fact, when I thought about, like, when I've thought about the people I've known with South Node rising, or like famous people with South Node rising, it really kind of tracks. The South Node has that kind of, it's very cool. It's detached. Things come to you, good or bad. Like it, you know, but it's less about having to go sort of carve your way through the world and more about how you respond or react to what comes your way.
Hmm. I have an idea that might sort of help sort of give an almost astronomical basis for that kind of interpretation. I've sort of been kicking around the idea that like the North Node is only really good for the moon, whereas the South Node could be considered like good for the sun. Because if we think directionally, that at the North Node, the moon's path is going north of the sun's, it's almost suggesting that there's like a period then when like the needs of the moon or the priorities of the moon are kind of held over the agenda of the sun, where say the collective concerns are sort of raised above the power and authority suggested by the sun. Whereas at south node eclipses, the moon is going south of the sun, and thus the sun's path would be supreme, you know, to the moon's, and and therefore the sort of agenda or of leaders would then sort of take priority like over the path of the moon, that the collective would be somehow submerged, and that there would be this kind of constant balancing, you know, between these two kind of forces. So I almost wonder if you might be able to say then that like the north node might have sort of more positively lunar but more negatively solar sort of connotations, whereas the south node would have more positively solar and maybe negatively lunar kind of meanings. Um,
I think I get what you're getting at. I mean, I don't think it's as absolute like that, but in terms of the characteristics, because yeah, like the North Node, bad for the solar in the sense that, well, you know, again, think of the guy whose chart I had up a second ago. You know, it's you know, at its purest form, the Sun North Node is very much about, you know, me first. Whereas Moon North Node is, yeah, like sort of proactive in terms of responding emotionally to, you know, other people or circumstances or what have you. A tremendous sort of sensitivity, in the good sense of the word. And then, like, yeah, Moon South Node is, well, again, think about the guy whose chart I had up a minute ago. Like everyone gets crushed under your feet. You know, that Moon South Node is Mike the Pillow Guy. It's Rudy Giuliani. You know what I mean? Like it's just like,
right.
it's Epstein. You know, it's
I
you know,
I read
whoever's adjacent winds up thrown under the bus.
I read a long time ago from like in like a newsletter from Demetra George. I forget exactly when this was. It might have been during the 2016 election, but she as usual, had this like amazing insight, which is that if you want to bring up that person's chart again, um, that the moon in this case is the ruler of the 12th whole sign house.
Mhm.
And so the moon then would not just represent the people and women generally, but also like his adversaries. And that the moon, because it's being overshadowed by the shadow of the earth, that it suggests like this is someone whose enemies have little authority, that their enemies sort of become
Right.
eclipsed, and that this sort of reflects the just seeming inability, for people to successfully kind of counter him, and that really his greatest errors come from when he is in some ways the source of his greatest
Oh,
downfalls. It
absolutely. Yeah.
doesn't come from other people
Yeah.
applying pressure. It kind of comes from like himself sort of overstepping, and of course the sun in his chart rules the ascendant itself, the first house. So it's like him
Mhm.
versus his enemies,
Yeah.
and that the enemies are in a kind of bad situation. But that also kind of reminds me of the fact that it was on the very day of the electoral college decision. The electoral college voted in December of 2021. It happened on the exact day of a solar eclipse in Sagittarius conjunct his moon. So, and that was one of the very few times that he actually was kind of outmaneuvered or
Mm.
one upped by an opponent. And but even then it was just temporary. And that's why I think since he is represented by the sun, I would think he would be uniquely vulnerable to solar eclipses, especially because if he's represented by the sun, then there's nothing worse that can happen to the sun than to be eclipsed.
Right.
And so I
Yeah.
assume that whatever uh, whenever it happens, I would assume that it probably will be very close to a solar eclipse. Not sure which one, but that would be my guess.
Huh. Okay. Um, well, I mean, he did, there was a solar eclipse right on his descendant,
Right.
just a few,
Opposite is
a
Mars.
week.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, and
that eclipse also fell on the former Prince Andrew's birthday when he was
right.
arrested.
Well, let's also consider that wasn't there just recently an assassination attempt when Mars was square Uranus again,
Mhm.
and that was with Mars rising up to the degree of the descendant. I mean, I wouldn't say this has been a terribly good time for him. He's obviously, just decided to launch, this
Yeah.
war, which is of dubious value or merit, and uh, and these kind of events are hard to control. I mean, I I lived through Iraq. That was my introduction to the United States screwing things up, uh, with foreign intervention. And you've seen from the outside, a few other things. You got to see. Well, you would have only been a kid, but I'm sure you were somewhat aware of the costs of Vietnam, perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um, and so this these
The
things
first Gulf the
don't
first
out very
Gulf
well.
War. Yeah, the first Gulf War, and, the '80s had all kinds of wars happening around the world. Um, yeah, it's funny, Mars square Uranus when the bombing of Iran started, just like, last June, Mars was square Uranus when, the 12-day war erupted between Israel and Iran. But I went back, I went and looked, and even like back May 8th, 2018, actually, I think I might even have the chart in here. Um, on May 8th, 2018, no, that was the blackout. What am I looking at? Did I not make this chart here? There we are. No, that's not the one. That's okay. I didn't make the chart here. My bad. But May 8th, 2018 was the day that he withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal, and
Oh, right.
Mars was square Uranus then as well. Um, so it's really like, oh, and then I went back and looked, and do I have these in here? Some of them. When Khomeini arrived in Iran and this began, Mars was approaching a square to Uranus.
Oh wow.
And then when I don't have the charts in here yet, but then when the hostages were seized later the same year in November, now Mars was in Leo getting ready to station retrograde in Virgo. Mars was in Leo square Uranus when the hostages were taken. And then Mars went into Virgo, it went retrograde back into Leo. When it went back into Leo in April of 1980 is when Jimmy Carter tried to rescue the hostages, and it went wrong. So there's so much like Mars square Uranus stuff in terms of like US Iranian interactions.
Wow.
It's kind of stunning just how much there is.
Wow. Wow. I want to respond to a couple of these comments here.
Oh, I haven't seen the comments here.
Yeah.
Stop sharing my screen.
So we had, let's see. Vicky likes these two Astro brothers too. Okay. How would a dementia diagnosis impact the reading interpretation of events? Are there any markers showing Trump is being played or used? That's interesting. I mean, I would assume that would be, yeah, there would be some sort of I gotta be honest, I haven't really looked at his chart too much in the past year.
I'm looking for this comment here. It's about Trump. Oh, is Trump being played used? How would a dementia? I mean,
well, what did it look like for Reagan? Right? He was,
yeah, I mean,
he was.
Yeah, yeah. The thing about Trump is, it doesn't take much for him to be, played and used. I mean, it happens all the time. Every time people, try to butter him up with flattery, he's being used.
I suppose part of that could be like, the ruler of his 11th house, which represents like friendships, it's represented by Mercury in Cancer, which is in the 12th house of adversaries. So it's like people who he interacts with as sort of allies, like in some way aren't really on, his side. And I would assume that probably plays into kind of the paranoia. He also has a tendency to just kind of have a really negative impact upon the people who kind of trust him. It seems like there's literally like hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits where he's stiffed people, hasn't repaid them. Every time he sort of makes people a promise, it's very rare that it actually, gets upheld. I'm just reading through more of these comments. That's so deep. It's like the old, what does my daddy have to do with me? Jesh says, when the South Node enters Leo later this year, would that be better for the solar agenda? Because of my idea about like the South Node being kind of good for the sun because the moon is being de-emphasized, like by crossing south of it. That's an interesting idea. I think we'd have to like actually like, I don't know, hold that idea up to some empirical comparisons. I haven't really done that work yet. And I think most people have working with the nodes have just used the assumption that like the North Node sort of lifts up and prioritizes whatever sign it goes through, while the South Node like draws down or minimizes. This is this kind of view of the nodes, which I kind of was inspired by through Martin Hermes. He's the guy who I think first sort of articulated this idea that South Node, North Node are kind of the good and bad depending on your perspective, whether or not you're like on the sun side or whether you're on the moon side. And I think that's sort of an interesting idea because oftentimes eclipses often do have to do with like the balance of power, one power rising or one power falling. They're not always like other transits where it kind of makes sense for both people. Like when there's like a lunar eclipse and it results in like one side winning or one side losing, there seems to be like one preferred party, in those events. So the answer, Josh, is I I don't quite know, but I would think that we would have to actually do some work to figure out if that's true. One framework that I had previously sort of worked with is that if like the North Node was say like in I often would get the sense of like if nodes are in a sign, they're opposite, they're in opposite pairs of signs, and so you would expect then to maybe see like if you had say the North Node in Libra versus the South Node in Aries, that like that might suggest something like calls for cooperation and civility. North Node in Libra are like prioritized or have greater impact or reach than say the South Node in Aries, which would be like sort of minimizing this more sort of contentious way of acting, saying instead of diplomacy, we need sovereignty and acting tough, etc. And it, of course, would be the reverse, if they were reversed. But yeah, you need to actually like see what the history sort of tells us about that.
Say, Patrick, would you like to put up your Nechepso and show us a few things you've been looking at?
Yeah, sure. I can certainly do that. I'm just looking at the questions here. Thanks for addressing the being influenced question. It makes sense that it's the outcome that's reflected, not the motive for the action. Chelsea Collins says there's a Mars-Jupiter South Node conjunction November 14th near his ascendant this year too.
Yeah.
I'd love to get your take on Mars-Jupiter conjunctions, because you've done a fair amount of work on
and that I mean
Jupiter.
that we're going to have a whole series of them. I mean, the Mars Jupiter, the one in November is just the beginning, because then Mars goes retrograde in January in Virgo and retrogrades back into Leo and stations direct with Jupiter and the South Node in April of 2027, the first week of April. And and it's a mirror image of April of 1980, 47 years earlier, because of course 47 is a Mars Jupiter joint synodic return. And sorry, I'll just get you in here. And whoops. And 47 years before that Mars direct station in Leo was April of 1980, was when Jimmy Carter tried to rescue the hostages, and it fell apart. So it's kind of it's got a weird. Oh, and also if you even look at like if you go all the way back to like Lexington Concord in 1775, it was similar like with Mars and Jupiter. Mars was just stationing direct in Leo as well. So it is sort of like this period that's been generally sort of vulnerable, and certainly when you bring up Iran in the context of what was happening 47 years ago, I'm thinking like that Mars Jupiter South Node is some kind of echo of some kind of the hostage crisis of 79-80.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Am I sharing my screen?
I thought you were. Yes, you are.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just checking.
Yeah.
So what would people like to see? I don't know if people like coming in again. I wouldn't want to show like the same things. Well, actually, there are a few new things on this software that John literally just put in. Any followers of Ali Olomi will probably really like this. This is our new Lord of the Turn tool, which essentially allows you to kind of use that technique. I think it's a really interesting overlay onto perfections, and it even makes use of your planetary hours. So I think that's pretty cool. And I have not worked with this very extensively myself, but it's been one of those things I've been kind of hoping to sort of get more into and incorporate more into my understanding of perfections. It kind of tells you, all I really know about it is that it gives you the ability to sort of highlight certain years of your life where you might expect greater developments to occur on the level of your soul or of your life, and that it sort of points very definitively to like certain years that would really hit versus other ones that might just pass more with the sort of lower profile in your life. So yeah, anyone who is all into the Lord of the Turn stuff from Alomi will really love this, I think. Um,
Incredible.
we also have we also have this, which I think is quite cool. It in the Valen's text, he has all of these different um, uh, factors in a chart that relate to eminence.
Hey,
Uh,
Patrick, if I
yeah,
may interrupt, why don't you drag that window down so it's longer? You know, at the bottom, the window itself, the valance. Yeah, yeah. There you go.
sorry.
Show them what
Yeah,
you can do. Yeah, yeah. There we
yeah,
go.
yeah. Here yeah, we can you can
Thank
just
you.
drag this out a little bit. There we go. Yeah, you can get some more space here. So yeah, he we went through the Valence text. We actually got permission too from the translator Mark Riley. He gave us full permission to use it in the software, and so we went through the chapter and found all of the different combinations that Valence gives, as well as some of the ones which are sort of implied, and it gives you the ability to sort of look at how eminent your chart is. Now you're probably wondering, like, what the heck does that mean? What does it mean for a chart to be eminent? And essentially, eminence refers to how supported is the chart, to the cosmic mind. Like, it's the idea that if you had a particularly eminent chart, that you might have a greater potential to rise to a higher station in life, or could it potentially even reflect you coming into a sort of high station in life. And so this is what some of these factors are supposed to be able to point towards. And it is interesting how, when you look at a few of these sort of highfalutin charts, like how they may very well fulfill some of these conditions. But I don't, but I mean, don't take it too seriously, because if you look at my chart, for example, I only got 3.1% indicators.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. I don't have a lot of the sort of lot-based angular types of rules. I don't fulfill those sort of conditions. But I think one thing to kind of think about too is, well, one, eminence doesn't always mean like fame. It doesn't always mean like recognition in that way. I would assume that someone who has like classified, like security clearance, to classified information, if you're like one of the few people in the world that like gets to know what the government really knows about aliens, for yourself, for example, maybe you have a more eminent shot. You have that kind of high level access to like what's really sort of going on in the world, but you could also very well just be like some random model like on a magazine cover, and have those kind of eminence indicators, and it's sort of more classically like, yeah, like you it's your face out of all others, that gets onto this magazine cover. um
Someone was just Sedona Lynn is asking to look at the asteroids feature. If you can put
sure.
them on the chart and all this stuff, why don't you? Boy,
Yeah.
do we ever have some asteroid. Also, can
Okay.
you click? Please change the data window so it's not so it's just the white background. Yeah, there we go. That looks
Okay.
for the
Sure.
video. It looks nicer. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. So here's what you can do with asteroids. Well, number one, we got all the asteroids. So no shortage
Literally,
of asteroids, and it's continually updated. Like, I think every
automatically.
quarter. Yeah, every
Yeah.
quarter we update it, and it is done automatically. So what's really cool about this is, like, we number one, we have like some of the kind of most sort of popular ones in here, but we also have a search bar. So like, you can literally search for whichever one you want. Like, I'm going to look for the asteroid beer. Oh no, is it? Oh, my computer is backing up. Hopefully that didn't break it. This was working before, so
No.
hopefully this isn't another bug. Oh no! Oh, there we go. We got it. I'm not sure why that happened. It hasn't happened before, but yeah, as you can see, it searched for it and found it. It found it right away. So when you click on it, it then appears. There's the asteroid beer. Now, what's what's kind of cool about this as well, and yeah, you can even look at the all of the information about it in the pop-up. Now, what's super cool about this is, say you want to add like a bunch more asteroids. You can see here the one I just selected, Beer, it's got added on to the sort of default list. Let's say I wanted to go absolutely crazy and just like add all of these like crazy asteroids, just like tons and tons and tons. You know, those would all start appearing on the chart. Not sure why they're taking so long to appear right now, so we're gonna have to hold on. They should be just showing up.
Some of the, you might need to. Oh, there are some of them pop up. But you can open up the ring and show them.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure whether they're not sure. All right. So I'm definitely gonna have to talk to John about this. But what's kind of cool is once if you have like too many things happening in your chart and it kind of becomes sort of hard to read, then you can just throw on the asteroid ring. So if you throw on the asteroid ring, then it separates the whoops. Yeah, let's give us a little more room here. There we go. So when you click on the asteroid ring, it creates another ring where the asteroids then go.
Maybe close up the timeline. I'm sorry to interrupt again. Close up the timeline. You can really stretch that chart out more. There we go.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, you can see that it gives you, like if I had this whole thing full with asteroids, I'm not sure why those other asteroids are not showing. Oh, weird. None of them. Yeah, they should be showing up.
Okay. Yeah, they have before. Well, we're gonna have to work that out.
Yeah, we're still still early days.
This is how we find little bugs that need to be fixed. But it was
of course they have. Of course they happen now. You know, never when I'm just like casually using it. It's always when it's in front of an audience. Anyway, so
but it does
yeah,
it does work. Yeah, it does generally work, and we have this huge list of asteroids. You can plot them in the chart or on a separate ring, and we'll see to it that by by the next live stream that's working properly and we can prove it.
Right. Now we also have an asteroids tool. And what is cool about this is you've probably, one of the things that I think has really been kind of hard to do with asteroids is to, there's just so many of them. How, there's no easy way to just like find out like what asteroids are conjunct a given like point in your chart. So what we have here is the reverse lookup tool. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to search for which asteroids are conjunct which parts of your chart. So I have all of these points selected here, and I'm going to I'll get rid of Chiron just so it doesn't take so long, because it takes a while for it to search, because it's going through like 40,000 asteroids. It can do it, but we'll just see, just like for the purpose of demonstration, like what asteroids are conjunct my ascendant. All right. And then you can set your orb. So I'll set it to like 1 minute orb. So this is going to only find the asteroids which are within 1 arc minute of my ascendant. And you can see here, we're just searching for all of the asteroids which are within 1 arc minute of my ascendant. And it'll just take a moment here. It might hopefully not freeze up. Seems like it's doing that. Part of the reason I've found it's a little, it's hard for me to run everything on my computer. My computer is ancient at this point, and you can see all the all of my things I have open down here. So yeah, it could just be a limitation of my machine. But basically, once this completes, not sure why it's taking so long, but once it completes, it just gives you the list of like what asteroids are conjunct a given point in your chart. And not only that, it also has like a a little bit of information about each one. We're actually going, there's a huge Wikipedia article on like the origins of the names for all of the named asteroids, and that is something we want to put into those pop-ups so that you actually have like some sort of context about like what the original sort of meaning or the the source of those asteroid names. So unfortunately, it should not take this long, and it's definitely there's some issue going on here. So
Okay.
we're gonna have to get John to look at this, I'm afraid. You can tell we didn't test beforehand.
No, no.
But
But this is
yeah.
good. I mean, at least we figure out something that needs to be tweaked. Okay. There are some questions coming up. We'll tackle these, and then I'll put my Nechepso up for the next thing. Yeah, a few questions. What does Nechepso mean? Why the name? Nechepso is the name of one of these ancient. Um, um, well, they weren't pharaohs. What were they, Patrick? The Nechepso and Pedicirus
Well,
were
they were astrologers. I mean,
astrologers. Yeah, yeah. In Egypt, in ancient Egypt.
I mean, Nechepso was supposed to have been a oh, there's a cat. Nechepso was supposedly a pharaoh.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
he was like a pharaoh slash astrologer. In fact, other authors called him the king instead of in reference to this. And apparently, according to Cameron Cassidy, he he told us that the name is supposed to be pronounced Nechepso.
Oh yes.
And he was pretty bummed that we keep calling it Nechepso. But I don't know. Sometimes to my wife, I'll call the program. Instead of calling it Nechepso, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'm working on the Chepster, or I'm working on Cheppy. I'm
I'm
working on
getting
Chep Chep.
pepsinated.
Yeah,
I'm getting pepsinated.
I'm working on Chep Chep." So yeah, I mean, it's a strange name, but I think if you're in the know, if you're in the world of sort of traditional astrology and ancient astrology, then it's usually a name you might have heard of. And I think it sort of hints at the idea that like this is kind of a the capabilities of the software are kind of for the people who
Want to
know
do
about this
astrology
stuff.
all day.
And
Want to
yeah,
do
like,
astrology all day and don't want to run out of things to look
and
at.
they know what Nechepso is, but like, just average normies, maybe they don't. Like, it's a whole, it's kind of a mystery. So I don't know. Kind of like I think John was the one who originally came up
Yeah.
with the name, because we were kind of struggling with like what the name should be, and we were kind of going back and forth. I think we liked the idea of naming it after an astrologer or after a person, to kind of, because we still have the idea of like making it so you're talking to an astrologer when we implement the AI. But we also kind of like the name too, because it's kind of cool. It's very unique, and it kind of allowed us to sort of lean into some of the kind of Egyptian iconography. It's also associated with we have the Eye of Horus, and the Horus falcon sort of prominently displayed in the imagery of the software, which is just kind of cool, but it's also kind of relevant, I suppose. Here, I'm gonna. I had to close it, unfortunately. Let's take a look at some of these other questions.
Someone wanted to know if it's usable on the phone. It is not. It's just for desktop for now. We do eventually want to expand it so that it can be on phones and iPads and what have you, and tablets. But for the time being, it's just a desktop software or laptop software.
Okay, Sedona Sedona Lynn says, there are several asteroids I use regularly and would like to be able to create customizable lists that I could add to the asteroid ring. I love that ring, by the way. You can make a custom asteroid list. You can decide that there's a couple of preset ones that are kind of they're divided up into like sort of categories. So you have like all the ones which are named after gods, all the ones which are used by Demetra George. Really, we made the asteroid feature pretty much just implementing like the things that Demetra George said she needed from a piece of software, and then we did it. That was how we did it. We just asked, what do you need? And then we did it. Let's see. Laura the Night Owl says, I love this. AstroSeek has a similar tool, but it doesn't have all the asteroids yet. We love and respect Peter.
Oh yeah.
Peta, like Peta is so amazing. Everyone who knows Peta knows, like, if you even breathe an idea, to him, like within like 24 hours, it will be up. And honestly, kind of reminds me of John a little bit.
Yeah.
John and Peta, should definitely meet sometime. I think like that would be a real meeting of minds there. But yeah, I fully love the hell out of AstroSeek and everything that Peta's done. And I know, like, I don't want to say like we're competitors. I mean, I know we're working in the same kind of field, but I think when you are on the inside of like these projects, when you actually have to see what actually goes into making software like this, I have nothing but respect, like,
Oh yeah.
for the people who do this. Like, all the people. I mean, I know like we're technically competitors, but like I honestly, I feel like there's a kind of, I don't know, sort of common awareness of just the scale of the challenge that you're trying to overcome. And so I respect anyone who, tries their hand at this. It's not easy. You have to think of literally everything. And the fact that Pet has done everything he's done like by himself, is staggering, honestly. Um,
Someone was asking, parenthetical information is asking about the Venus and Mars retrogrades being aligned, because later this year Venus goes retrograde in Scorpio as Mars is entering its shadow in Leo. The Venus Mars cycle, their cycles align every 32 years. And in fact, it was 32 years ago, in late 94, Venus went retrograde in Scorpio, and not long after it went direct in January of 95, Mars went retrograde in early Virgo at 2 degrees of Virgo and retrograded back into Leo. And it's very much the degrees aren't exactly like they were in 94, 95, but it's that same pattern with a Venus retrograde in Scorpio being followed shortly after by a Mars retrograde in Virgo. And fun fact, I read my first astrology book shortly after that Mars retrograde in Virgo in 1995. Yeah, long story short, it's not uncommon for Venus retrogrades and Mars retrogrades to interact in this way. There have been certain periods in history when they happen at the same time, opposite each other. In the summer of 1860, Venus was retrograde in Cancer, opposite Mars retrograde in Capricorn, as I recall. And people born that summer include Hitler's mom and who was the woman who axed her parents at the end of the 19th century?
Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden. It's a really interesting summer. Alan Leo was also born that summer. That's a little less frequent, but they do come into patterns that hold for a good while, and there's a 32-year repetition of those stations until eventually they wander off, over longer stretches of time.
Someone asked if we have a decennials feature. I'm sharing my screen, Nick, if you want to share it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We have the backend code done for it. Like basically all of the Time Lord systems there are, like, we have the backend code, which means we have like a Python terminal with the code in it that can generate it for a given date and place and time, etc. We just haven't built out the front part of this, which is the code, QML code, which gives us the actual front-facing interface for interacting with that code. So the amount of time it takes to go from back end to front end, if you have a good plan and good design, can be done within a day, depending on the complexity, or a week if it's more complex. But so I say that to say that we aren't far off. There's a few other things. Obviously, we're trying to fix just what we have, but decennials we can absolutely have going fairly quickly. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Decennials. Anything in the software for studying relating patterns as a visual? Oh, interesting. You mentioned that, actually. Here, I'll share my screen again.
Someone asked if my Venus phases are in. The Venus intervals are in. The
I can
red
show you.
ones, blue twos, and all that. But the phases will come in soon to complete that.
Yeah, yeah, I'll show that real quick. Yeah, the Venus and like
Oh,
intervals,
let
you
me
can
get
see
rid
they
of
are.
the. Let me just move the QR code so that's not in the way in our images.
So yeah, you can see yeah, the Venus intervals are displayed here, and you can like zoom in to a time frame, and you can see what's in effect at what time, etc. Um, and oh, someone wanted to know about seeing like the visual sort of aspect of the planets. There is a there is a module that we haven't worked on yet, but is in the works. And you can see it's on the home page here. It says visuals. So this will be where you can create things like, you know, mandalas, and you'll be able to see these more graphical depictions. I mean, I will say though that even in the workspace, we've tried to make an effort to kind of show information in a visual way. You know, eventually you'll be able to put on like, you know, Venus retrogrades and Mars retrogrades in the timeline here, and you'll be able to actually sort of see it visually, like when those planets are retrograde, and compare it against your events in the timeline. There will be some. We are trying our best to sort of make astrology more visual, just in the workspace. But for like, you know, crazy graphical stuff, like that's where the visuals module will kind of be more in line with what you're sort of looking for. Um, Let me see. What are some? I can't see the questions and my screen at the same time. That's why I'm flipping back
Yeah.
and forth. Sorry about that.
Oh,
Can
someone's
the
asking, can the chart be played forward and backward in
Oh,
time?
yeah. Oh, yeah, let me show you that. So this is actually really funny. Okay, are you sharing my screen?
I'm about to. There we go.
All right. So, yeah, it's really easy actually. So first of all, let's do this. So you have to arm the chart for animation, right? You have to press like this is something some people
You know what, Patrick, if I
recommended.
may, I'm sorry to interrupt again.
No, go ahead.
Close the timeline and change the text box again so the video looks nicer. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
So in order to animate the chart forward or backward, you can just press play. Like I'm saying that I only want it to advance by day, and I can increase the speed here. So now we're going fast. And of course, if I want to, you know, go forward by months, then, you know, same thing. Whoa. Or, you know, by, you know, year, if I want to, you know, you can go basically use whatever your preferred time unit is. Now to go backwards, you can obviously use these controls too, but you can also just right click on the animation button and it flips around backward. So then you can do the same thing, just going back. So now it's going backward through time. You know, it's going back a year at a time. So that is, yeah, that's pretty simple. We did want that ability to do that, and so this is where you do it. Now, we will eventually have the ability to use these controls on the sides, so that you can have this area here down clear, so you can get full height of the chart. Part of that's just a consequence of the original design of like having a tab system with the stuff up here and having the timeline down here. But we know that people really want to be able to see the full, you know, chart. So we're going to, you know, allow you to have the ability to like do some of these things on the side so you can get that full height. And are there any other questions?
Yeah, someone's asking, how does the app demonstrate a planet in the beams of the sun?
Yeah. So now this is kind of funny because it's actually not technically correct. Like astronomically, the notion of the beams is not as fixed distance, but essentially to show beams, just go to display on chart, toggle on beams, boom, you get this kind of yellow band around the sun, and you can even change the exact range. So right now I have it set to 15, but I could, you know, shorten it I can shorten to like 10, you know. Oh, do I? Oh, I realize. Don't use this all the time. Here, I can probably put 1. There we go. Oh. Oh yeah, there we go. See, it's shrinking. I was like, why
Yep.
is it moving? Okay, yeah. So that's basically that. So yeah, that's the beams. But you know, but that sort of geometric definition of the beams of the sun is you know kind of insufficient. That's part of the reason why we have this tool now to actually give you the sort of astronomical visibility of each planet. And that has to do with like calculating the more precise heliacal rising according to your geographic latitude and according to your atmospheric extinction coefficient for that time of the year in that place as derived from NASA data, and also your elevation, etc. So yeah, like the beams, you know, is more maybe more accurately like depicted through like looking at a given cycle through here. Like you can see, um, for example, you know, this area is like where Venus is invisible. When it got here was on December 6, 2006. It was in period of evening visibility. In this part of the chart, it got to the elongation around June 9th, and then it reached the retrograde station on July 27th, and then it reached the heliacal setting in the evening on August 2nd, reached the interior conjunction on August 18th, then it rose out of the beams on August 24th. Then it reached the direct station on September 8th. So this is kind of interesting. It sort of tells you that
Yeah.
it was only invisible for like a period of time, like within the retrograde station. In other cases, sometimes the period of invisibility can happen on either side of the retrograde direct station. So the whole thing is invisible, just depending on the kind of more unique situation for that place. And then this is the period of morning visibility. Um, and in fact, if we advance through the cycles here, we might actually get an example of what happens. Oh yeah, so sometimes there can be missing events. Sometimes there are, yeah. So that I'm actually going to deal with this in a more correct way in a future version, and I'm going to try to work on that really soon. But the thing I was looking for is seeing if I can find one. I think we get one in 2013. Oh wait, no, I guess it'll be 2017. Pardon me.
All righty. Yeah, I love this thing. I'm just so fascinated with it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's opening a million doors.
Mm. Yeah, I need to. So, like for example, here it's kind of interesting. It changes shape, you know, depending on when, you know, relative to the retrograde station, the invisibility period happens. So it's kind of an abstract diagram. I would like to create a more astronomically correct one eventually. Like
But
one thing
it conveys it. It conveys the
yeah,
concept.
yeah, it does convey the concept. One thing that I think is kind of interesting, more astronomically, is that I always thought that the evening and morning elongations were essentially the squaring points, but they're not really. You know, really the elongation points are closer to being like here,
Mhm. Yeah.
and where we would actually consider like Venus or Mercury to be like square the sun. Obviously, it's not actually square the sun, but like when it's at a, you know, with like you know, this is the Earth and the sun's in the center, and like when Venus is like really around here, that's really closer to like the what do they call the pre-retrograde shadow, I believe.
Well, the greatest elongation is wider than the shadow for Venus.
Or maybe I'm talking about Mercury
Yeah.
then, because I was
Yeah, you
suddenly
must be talking
thinking
about
ahead.
Mercury because with Venus, the greatest elongation is wider than the
Okay,
shadow.
yeah. So I think for Mercury, the now Mercury is the one that's really crazy, where like the rules kind of go out the window. In fact, Mercury was the primary reason this took so long to finish, because Mercury has has real variability in its visibility, and actually even to this day, we don't really have a fully reliable algorithm for computing the magnitude of Mercury, and it's only going to be fixed with like more empirical observation. So it's kind of crazy that like Mercury is like evaded firm categorization for this long, but that's also you know very on brand for Mercury to be the one outlier compared to the other planets, which we sort of have a greater amount of sort of control over. um but yeah, and you can see how it sort of changes for the inner planets and the outer planets. The one thing I think is really cool about this with the hological phenomena tool is you can also just generate a list. If you just want like a list of these events, instead of having to sort of peck and hunt through the cycle or whatever, then you can kind of choose a place. You choose your date range, you choose the location, and then you choose the event that you're looking for. If you want to see all the retrograde stations, you want to see all the hological risings, etc., you can just like print it out, and it makes a list here that you can export or pop out. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So like if I wanted to find all of the Mercury events for, let's say, 2026, yeah, I'll just do it for you. Then I'll put in all these. Those are all the visibility events. Here, we'll make this wider. Then we can generate list, and it's going to calculate all those, and then we can see right here, create a little pop out. Do you see that? So essentially, these are like estimated dates of when these missed events like would have occurred if conditions have been correct, to actually fully detect it. But we get this little reading here, basically saying Mercury rose into the beams on May 21st, and then it will set on June 21st, and then it rises in the morning on July 29th, and then it set on August 21st, and it stayed set. It wasn't visible again until November. Like, so this is kind of interesting because it gives us this, like, there are these gaps, these long periods where, especially for more northern or more southern latitudes, where the planets just won't be visible for a long period of time. This happens a lot with Mercury because it's so close to the sun. So I think that is pretty cool. And of course, you can also customize what information you want to be included on this.
You can pull that window down as well. Like,
yep. Yeah. No. Exactly. Yeah. And you can export it as as a text or a PDF file or a CSV. So yeah, it's kind of set up for being able to kind of do some research, and yeah, that is the tool. So I've spent quite a bit of time on that, and I'm still trying to get it correct on a couple of things. I also want to add the eclipses and stuff as like animations, and sort of incorporate that into the sort of cycle depictions. But yeah, that's that. Does anyone have any questions?
Mostly comments. Yeah, Vicky says we're getting boring. But
Oh no, yeah. Well, I don't know what to tell you.
But what I'm gonna say is like, yeah, we're showing off Nechepso for now because it's just come out, but we're not going to be so boring when we just start using it regularly to discuss actual astrology. I realize it's more of a tour of the software than some, our usual engaging
Yeah, I
conversation.
don't want to. Yeah, I'm sorry if it feels like an extended ad. We could make this more interesting. Take off our shirts or something and see where this goes.
I think as we go on, it'll be less of an overt ad, and we'll just be like doing our interesting thing, but using Nechepso. So, yeah, I mean, if this is painful for the time being, if you like what we do, you'll really love what we do as we become more familiar with the software and um, you know. And have a better idea of how to use it for live streams and things like that. And yeah, that also goes like I think the same person mentioned that I haven't really explained the Venus intervals yet. I was waiting for software like this that would make it possible for me to demonstrate things quickly and what have you. So
Mm.
now that Nechepso is coming out, it makes a lot of the other things that we want to do that we haven't been able to do possible.
Right. I want to actually put your Venus intervals on. I want to have that as like an overlay onto the Venus cycle diagram. So when you want to see it,
Yeah.
just click it on, and then it will show how sort of maps onto it. So I think, yeah, that's definitely there's
Yeah.
still a
I'd
lot to
also I'd
do.
like to be able to click on any of those things and a chart pops up, so that yeah,
Mm.
I can see where we can take it. Yeah, someone else asked if I'm very busy with my Patreon. Again, I've been waiting for Nechepso to come out so I could get really busy with my Patreon. So, so far, no, it's been dormant. But with the expectation that now that this is out, I can start making these video essays that I've been working on forever, and putting them out in the style I would like with Nechepso. So yeah, stay tuned. Patrick and I are going to keep live streaming. Sometimes it'll be this sort of Nechepso infomercial stuff, just because we're really proud daddies and we want to show off what we have, not just because we want to sell subscriptions. But yeah, we are going to do that. But I think as time goes on, of course, we will just we will sink more into just using the features as we talk about interesting astrological subjects. I'm running out of steam. I got a kid to lift to school in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
I hope we've done okay today. Thank you everyone for joining us and putting up with our tedious salesmanship. Next time we'll put on some plaid suits or something like that. We'll
Well,
go all
or
Red Violet on the.
I think, well, we could we could just, maybe for next time we can just do, like the normal thing. We'll just use the Nechepso in the course of what we're talking about. We don't have to like make it the point, unless someone has a question. They really want to know something about the software. Yeah, it's funny. Like I haven't really like polished my pitch in a way for the software. I'm like, I've just been so. I feel like I am, some kind of woodland critter who's just like been living in a hole for the past 2 years. Like I've been living and breathing this. So in a way, like, I don't know. I'm like not. I'm obviously ecstatic and really, really energized by this too. But I'm also like, um, it's hard for me to remember sometimes that like this isn't just old hat, for a lot of people. For a lot of people, this is like the first time they're kind of seeing this, and I've just been like living and breathing it. So I have to kind of remember like, oh yeah, this is like a new thing. Perhaps. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, if you lose steam, we can always come back.
Yeah, we'll be back. We don't know exactly when. We kind of wing it, but stay tuned. We're going to be doing this more and more.
Maybe Sunday would be a better day. Sunday is
And
a better day
Saturday.
for me if it is. Yeah, I
Yeah.
Saturdays I'm with clients.
Okay.
I
All right.
And by the way, I am still seeing clients. I
Oh yeah.
a few people who have been sort of questioning. I did have to pull back over the past couple of years at a few different points, because I was just too consumed by the work, and it is still a lot of work already, still. But I am, yeah, I do have availability, and I appreciate in some ways being able to, think about something else for a little bit. So
Fantastic. Yeah, we're both seeing clients, and yeah, and we will be back, and I guess, yeah, Sunday should work if we're going to schedule a day. I mean, we haven't really discussed it, but Sunday works for me. So if Sunday works for you, let's just, rather than make people feel like, it's the old days when your TV show suddenly got switched by the network to a different night, and
Right.
you're like, hey, what happened
Right.
to Cheers?
Right.
Or whatever. No, it never really happened to Cheers, but whatever TV show you wanted to watch and they suddenly switched it. It was kind of
Yeah.
like that. So we're not going to do that. Or we'll try not to do that. So Sunday.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Same
Next
time.
Sunday. Yeah,
All
around the
right.
same time. All right.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again. Sorry I get tired out, but it's the end of a long day. I've had
Yeah.
clients all day, and it's 10 at night, and I have to take my kid to school in the morning. So there you go. We will be back. Thank you. We're thrilled to be back, and we'll see you then. Bye for now.
Bye.